Today we're going to be getting into some heavy speculation involving some of the more recent Star Wars comics, hence the Speculate Responsibly shirt, thanks to Force Center Podcast.
Yeah, we're not going to be going too wild here, but the Poe Dameron comic finished up last week with its 31st issue, and it had some stuff to say about the Resistance and the First Order, and we thought it would be fun to take a look at Episode 9 and how they might be faring at that point in time. So the comic tells us that the First Order has been spreading throughout the galaxy and just conquering system after system. So what we saw of them in The Last Jedi, that was just a small subgroup. The rest of them were out taking over planets. And so Poe and Black Squadron go to this one planet to try to save it, stop it from being conquered. And when Poe announces himself, the First Order is very surprised because, first of all, they were told that the entire Resistance was destroyed during the attack on Dakar. They thought that it went off without a hitch and that there wasn't any need to chase.
Yeah.
And so they were just straight up lied to. And then beyond that, Poe tells them that Snoke is dead, the Supremacy is destroyed, along with like 20 other Star Destroyers and a Dreadnought. And they just don't know how to react to that. I mean, they're like, well, who's in charge now? What do we do? And then one person just thinks that he's lying, which clearly he's not because they've already been lied to about the Battle of Dakar. So, yeah, I think that could point towards some heavy dissent in the First Order when it comes to Episode 9. What do you think?
Yeah, we've talked about this a couple of times and thought that maybe we would see a bit of a shakeup when it comes to the First Order in Episode 9, now that Kylo's in charge, Snoke is gone, and this definitely points it in that direction. The fact that parts of the First Order throughout the galaxy don't even know the truth behind what happened, and the fact that now Kylo's in charge, Snoke is gone, and, you know, the Resistance is still, you know, up and doing their thing, and so, yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, that they're just kind of letting them go throughout the galaxy, doing what they're doing without updating anyone.
I wonder if that was Hux. If that was something that he gave the order to put that information out there.
I'm more wondering if it was Kylo Ren, because, I mean, he was the one that just got embarrassed by Luke in front of his little detachment of the First Order.
That's true.
So maybe he was like, maybe we just make sure we control the galaxy first, and then I'll talk about how Snoke's dead and I'm the first or the Supreme Leader now. But I do see them, I guess I see two sides of the First Order. You got the people like Snoke and Kylo Ren and probably the Knights of Ren, and then you have the rest like Hux and all of his military people. I think they're going to be butting heads in Episode 9.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked about the Knights of Ren, and we're hopeful that they will appear again, and that maybe it will be kind of this very tense relationship with the First Order, where you got Kylo and the Knights of Ren kind of barely controlling the rest of the military. But they can because they're Force users.
Yeah, and we might even see a bit of an upset within the First Order and have some people switching sides, which would be pretty interesting.
And if the military is so just upset with the leadership, I mean, I've said before that I'm hopeful. I think it would be really cool if the stormtroopers basically mutinied, and they used Finn as an example, and he became some sort of inspiration for the stormtroopers and maybe the rest of the military to switch sides.
Yeah.
And cause some real problems for the First Order within.
Now who's the traitor?
Yeah. Damn. So since we talked about the First Order, we thought we might as well talk about the Resistance as well. We actually have a little bit of information to go off of thanks to an interview that Oscar Isaac did with USA Today. And he said, "It's easy to forget that the Resistance are guerrilla fighters, adhering closer to something like the Revolutionary War fighters or even the guerrillas in Cuba with Che and Fidel and all these guys living in the mountains coming down to do some attacks and going back and trying to hide from the, quote, empire of the United States. It's that kind of ragged at this point." So yeah, I think that it's cool and interesting that he refers to them as guerrilla fighters. It sounds like, especially the term ragged, that they're still going to be a pretty small outfit at the time. What do you think about that?
It's very reminiscent of Rogue One for me because they were kind of in the same boat. There was not a lot of them. they were getting help from some of the more radical people like Saw Gerrera. So yeah, I'm excited to see like the state of the resistance in episode 9.
Interesting that you bring up like the radical people, because in the Poe Dameron comic, Poe gets some help from one of their only allies apparently willing to take some actions, and it's Gracchus the Hutt. And I loved Gracchus. I don't know why. I feel like I'm alone in that. Most people seem to think he's stupid, but like he was introduced in the Star Wars comics as like this super buff Hutt. And I was like, that's hilarious and amazing. But he got imprisoned in the Star Wars comic, and then 30 years later in the Poe comic, they break him out. And so now he's willing to do favors for them. And I'm wondering if that is also a sign of things to come, that maybe they will be getting some help from the scum and villainy side of the universe. Maybe the Hutts or like Hondo or pirates are going to help out the resistance.
I mean, we see how successful Rogue One was and how much people loved the story. I would not be surprised if they saw that and were like, oh, okay, let's take a couple pages out of that book and flip it around a little bit and make it work for the resistance story.
Yeah. I mean, I think that what we're seeing is a kind of a mirror for the original trilogy, which some people might be upset about, but The Empire Strikes Back was a very personal story. And then you get to Return of the Jedi, and it was more of a war story, I would say. I mean, the Battle of Endor is insane. I love it.
Yeah.
So I kind of think that The Last Jedi, we got our personal story, and we're going to come back, and Episode 9 is going to be a lot more fighting. And I think it's probably going to bring some of the war back to Star Wars a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, history repeats itself, even in Star Wars.
Even in filmmaking.
Yeah.
One thing that I think is interesting that they are described as kind of ragged is that it feels like Luke's actions at the end of The Last Jedi, I mean, they were supposed to be this message of hope. It was supposed to inspire the galaxy. And it kind of seems like maybe that hasn't happened yet, but I'm still hopeful that it does. And I'm wondering if they are kind of saving it for Episode 9, kind of in the way that Rian Johnson felt it was important for us to see what happened with Rey and Luke, that maybe they feel it's important for us to see the galaxy rally behind the resistance.
Right. It sounds like the First Order is doing some big damage control and probably are trying to, get rid of any stories being told throughout the galaxy about what happened on Crate. So that message of hope may not have gotten as far as they had hoped.
Yeah, I mean, it made it to Canto Bight, as we saw with the kids. So, I don't know. There's plenty of wiggle room either way. And I still think that there's probably going to be a time jump between The Last Jedi and 9. At least I hope so. I don't want this whole trilogy to take place over the course of a month.
Yeah.
Or less. But, yeah, I think that, I guess what I kind of think of is The Dark Knight Rises a little bit, where Batman was supposed to be a symbol to rally Gotham, and so that they didn't always need Batman. And that's what happens in The Dark Knight Rises. Like, the police at the end of the movie rally to fight against Ra's al Ghul, or Talia al Ghul at the time, and Bane and stuff. And that's kind of the vibe I'm getting, is that maybe we will see the galaxy rise up to defend themselves instead of having to rely on the Resistance or the Jedi. It could be more of a common man story of like, we can do this too.
Yeah.
Which I think would be a cool message.
Yeah. And it would be a good way to send off the story and kind of wrap everything up. Like, everyone's defending themselves now.
Yeah. I mean, that could be one way in which the Skywalker family actually made the galaxy better, because I mean, there are people joking about how it's this one family that keeps messing up the universe, and it's true. But then if Luke is able to inspire the galaxy to rise up and be heroes for themselves, I think that would be a nice way to put a bow on it at the end.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. What do you guys think? What do you think the state of the First Order or the Resistance or both is going to be in episode 9? What do you think we're going to see from the war side of things? How do you think it's going to play out? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, are you excited to see a more guerrilla-style warfare from the Resistance? Because I definitely am.
Yeah. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
And follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.